The Rosicrucian and Christianity Lectures by Max Heindel. Narrated by Matthew Schmitz. Lecture 11. Spiritual Sight and Insight. When we speak of spiritual sight, we are not speaking symbolically or of a vague something, an ecstatic feeling or the like, but of a definite faculty as real as physical sight and as necessary to perception of the spiritual worlds and to true insight into superphysical conditions, as physical sight is indispensable to a comprehensive insight into material things. The spiritual sight of which we speak is not to be confused with clairvoyance, developed in spiritualistic circles. The latter depends upon a negative state of mind, where the inner worlds are reflected in the consciousness of the sitters, as the surrounding landscape is reflected in a mirror. Such a method gives sight, but insight concerning the thing seen is lacking in the negative clairvoyant as much as in the mirror. He is in a position similar to that of a man tied on a horse without rein or bridle, who is carried wheresoever the horse pleases. Such a faculty is a curse. The properly trained clairvoyant is not tied. He can get on or off as he pleases, has rein and bridle on his horse. He is master, the other a slave. Certain negative phases of clairvoyance are also developed by taking drugs, by crystal gazing, etc. In all such cases, the faculty is a danger and a detriment, being uncontrolled by the spirit. Drugs have a fearfully destructive effect on the different vehicles of man, but the most dangerous method of development is indiscriminate breathing exercises. Many a man is in the insane asylum today, or his body lies in a consumptive's grave, on account of having practiced breathing exercises in development classes, taught by persons as ignorant as himself. Breathing exercises, when necessary, are never given in classes, as each pupil is differently constituted from everyone else. Each consequently needs individual exercises, and different mental exercises also to accompany them. Only through individual instruction from a competent teacher can spiritual sight and insight be developed in perfect safety. The foregoing remarks apply only to breathing exercises for occult development and not to exercises for physical culture, which are excellent when practiced in moderation. The question then arises, how may the true teacher be found, and how distinguished from the impostor? This is a momentous question, for when the aspirant has found such a teacher, he is in a safe haven and will be guarded against the great majority of dangers which beset those who, through ignorance or selfish motives, steer their own course and seek spiritual powers without endeavoring to develop moral fiber. It is an axiomatic truth that men are known by their fruits, and as esoteric scholarship demands from the pupil unselfishness of motive, it is a fair inference that the teacher must possess this attribute in a still higher degree. Thus, if a man proclaim himself a teacher and offer his knowledge for sale at so much per lesson, he falls below the standard set for the pupils. That he must obtain money to live, and similar excuses for charging tuition, are all sophistries. Cosmic law cares for him who works with it, and any teaching offered on a commercial basis is not the highest knowledge, for that is never bartered for an actual or implied material consideration, but in every case comes to the recipient as a right, as a result of merit. And even if the true teacher desired to avoid instructing a certain person, he would be compelled by the law of consequence to give him the instruction when earned. Such an attitude would be unthinkable, however, for there is joy inconceivable among the elder brothers of humanity over everyone who commences to walk along the path of life everlasting. On the other hand, anxious though they are, they may not reveal their secret to anyone before he has proved by steadfastness and unselfishness to be a safe guardian of the resulting immense power for good or evil. If we allow our passions to run riot, if avarice and greed are the mainspring of our actions, we hinder progress instead of helping our fellow man, and until we have learned to use aright the powers we have, we are not befitted to do the greater work demanded of those who have been helped by the elder brothers to develop their latent spiritual sight and to gain the spiritual insight which makes this faculty of value as a factor in evolution. Therefore, the path of preparation precedes the way of initiation. Persistence, devotion, observation, and discrimination are means of attainment, for by these the vital body is sensitized. By persistence and devotion, the chemical and the life ethers become capable of taking care of vital functions in the dense body during sleep. A cleavage takes place between those two ethers and the two higher, the light ether and the reflecting ether. When the latter two have been sufficiently spiritualized by observation and discrimination, a simple formula given by the teacher enables the disciple to take them out with his higher bodies at will. He is thus equipped with a vehicle of sense perception and memory. Whatever knowledge he possesses in the material world is then available in the spiritual realms, and he brings back to the physical brain memories of his experience while without the dense body. This is necessary in order to function outside the dense body with full consciousness of both the physical world and the desire world, for the desire body is unorganized as yet, and did not the vital body leave its imprint on the desire body at death, we could have no consciousness in the desire world during post-mortem existence. Indiscriminate breathing exercises do not effect this cleavage, but tend to lift the whole vital body out of the dense body. Thus, in some cases, connections between etheric sense centers and brain cells are ruptured or strained, and insanity results. In other instances, the line of cleavage occurs between the life ether and the chemical ether, and as life ether is the cementing material in assimilation and the particular avenue for specialization of solar energy, this rupture results in consumption. Only proper exercises bring about the right cleavage. When purity of life has turned the unused sex force generated in the life ether upwards through the heart, that force takes care of the limited amount of circulation necessary during sleep. Thus, physical functions and spiritual development are carried on side by side along proper and harmonious lines. Above we have the reason for the vow of celibacy taken by those who devote themselves entirely to the higher life. It is not necessary for a beginner to go into asceticism. Absolute celibacy is only for the few as yet. At present, union of the sexes is the method of procreation. There is no other way to provide bodies for incoming egos, and it is the duty of everyone who is of sound mind, morals, and body to provide a vehicle and an environment for as many incoming spirits as his means and opportunities allow. We should approach the act of procreation as a sacrament, not for the gratification of the senses, but in a spirit of prayer. The sex force is required but a few times in the life of any person for generation. The remainder is legitimately available for self-improvement. Discrimination is the faculty whereby we distinguish that which is unimportant and unessential, separating the real from illusion and the lasting from the evanescent. In ordinary life, we are accustomed to think of the body as ourselves. Discrimination teaches that we are spirits, and our bodies are but temporary dwelling places, instruments for use. The carpenter uses hammer and saw. They are important instruments, but he does not think of himself as being either. Neither should we identify ourselves with our bodies, but learn to discriminate, to regard the body as a servant, valuable only insofar as obedient to our commands. When thus regarded, we shall find that we can readily make it do many things hitherto thought impossible. Discrimination generates the intellectual soul and gives man his first start toward the higher life. Observation is the use of the senses as means of obtaining information regarding the phenomena around us. Observation and action generate the conscious soul. It is of the highest importance to our development that we observe the insights and scenes around us accurately. Otherwise, the pictures in our conscious memory do not coincide with the automatic subconscious records. The rhythm and harmony of the dense body is disturbed in proportion to the inaccuracy of our observation during the day. Our activities during sleep partially restore harmony, but the warning vibrations from day to day and year to year are one of the causes which gradually harden and destroy our organism until it becomes unfit for the use of the spirit and must be abandoned to give the spirit another opportunity for growth in a new and better body. In proportion as we learn to observe accurately, we shall gain in health and longevity, and we shall need less rest and sleep. The latter is an important point in the present discussion, as will presently appear. Devotion to high ideals is a curb on the animal instincts and generates and evolves emotional soul. Cultivation of the faculty of devotion is very essential. In some people, this is the line of least resistance, and they are apt to become mystic dreamers. The energies of the desire body are then expressed as enthusiasm and religious ecstasy. There are also some people who develop abnormally the faculty of discrimination, which leads along cold intellectual lines of metaphysical speculation. In either case, there is a lack of balance, a danger. The mystic dreamer, because dominated by emotion, may become subject to all sorts of illusion. That, the intellectual occultist will never do, but he may end in black magic if he pursues the path of knowledge for the sake of knowledge and not for service. The only safe way is to develop both head and heart. The occultist unfolds along intellectual lines. He searches for truth by observation and discrimination. He observes and reasons upon what he sees. Thus he attains to knowledge. But as Paul says, knowledge puffeth up, but love edifieth. And before his knowledge can be of the highest use in spiritual unfoldment, he must learn to feel it, else he cannot live it. When he has done that, he is both mystic and occultist. The mystic develops particularly the faculty of devotion. He feels truth without necessity of reasoning. He knows, but cannot give a reason for his faith or explain to others so as to help them. He must develop the intellectual side of his nature to be of the highest use in the upliftment of humanity. Then intellect acts as a curb on the emotions, and devotion safely guides the intellect. If we go along one line or the other exclusively, we shall have to take up the other at some future time in order to become fully rounded. It is better, therefore, to try to develop now the faculty we lack. Thus we shall make the most rapid progress toward the final goal with perfect safety. The clarity and sharpness of a photograph depend on the way the lens is focused by the photographer. Once set, it remains in focus. If it had life and a will of its own, if it could change its direction and focus, these pictures would become blurred. The mind is in about that position. It flits about aimlessly, literally in a mental St. Vitus's dance, and resents a curb most strenuously. But it can and must be tamed, and persistence is the chief means of bridling it. In proportion as the mind is stilled, the spirit can reflect itself in the threefold body, on the principle that the sun mirrors itself in a calm sea, but turbulent billows deflect the sun rays. The vital body is like a mirror, or rather, like the film of a moving picture. It pictures alike the world without according to our faculty of observation, and the ideas of indwelling spirit from within according to the clarity and training of the mind. Devotion and discrimination, otherwise emotion and intellect, decide our attitude toward these pictures, and their balanced action leads to a well-rounded development. When evolved to a certain point, they inevitably bring about a process of purification. The man will realize that in order to attain the goal, he must lay aside whatever clogs the wheels of progress. A good mechanic aims to have the best tools and keep them in perfect order, for he knows their value in producing good work. Our bodies are tools of the Spirit, and in proportion as they are clogged, they hinder its manifestation. Discrimination teaches us what hinders, and devotion to the higher life helps to eliminate undesirable habits or traits of character by superseding mere desire. Flesh food, obtained at the cost of a fellow creature's life and suffering, and imbued with its desires and passions, besides being in a state of decay, is not a pure food, and no earnest aspirant to higher powers would choose to feed his body upon such offal. He will study how to satisfy the needs of his body with pure food. He realizes the importance of keeping his brain clear, that his waking consciousness may be thoroughly open to spiritual influence. Hence he will cease to use tobacco and alcohol, which stimulate the brain and then leave it deadened. Moderation is a misnomer in regard to drink. All use of alcohol is excess and disastrous to the quest for spiritual attainment. Loss of temper is subversive of inner growth. It is dissipation on a large scale of energy which may be profitably used. It poisons the body, wrecks it, and enormously hinders attainment. Likewise do thoughts of criticism hurt us, and the aspirant will abstain from them as much as possible. Discrimination teaches us, in an impersonal way, what is good and evil, but gives us no feeling about it, and that is the most important point. Examination of a fact, idea, or object, and a decision respecting its worth is necessary and not to be shunned, but harsh thoughts should be avoided, for they form arrow-like thought forms, and as they pass outward from us, they pierce and obstruct the inflow of good thoughts constantly radiated by the elder brothers and attracted by all good men. 2 specific exercises are given the aspirant on the path of preparation. Both lead to a development of spiritual sight and insight. One leads the direct way and will appeal most to the intellectual occultist, but is of great value to the mystic, because it develops the faculty he lacks most, namely reason. The exercise is called concentration, which produces thought power. The other brings a similar result in a roundabout manner. It appeals most to the mystic, but is of prime necessity to the intellectual occultist, because it supplies a feeling for truth, which is beyond reason. That exercise is retrospection, which develops power of devotion. Both are necessary to secure a thoroughly rounded development. The philosophy of the attainment of spiritual sight and insight is to compel the desire body to perform the same work inside the dense body while we are fully awake, positive, and conscious as it does outside in sleep and in the post-mortem state. There are certain currents in the desire body of everyone. They are strong, well-defined, and form 7 great vortices in clairvoyance, but are weak, broken, and devoid of vortices in the ordinary man who cannot see. Development of those currents and vortices leads to spiritual sight. In the daytime, when we are engrossed in material pursuits, these currents are sluggish, but as soon as man draws out of the dense body during sleep and commences the work of restoration, as outlined in lecture number 4, the currents revive, the vortices spin and glow, for the desire body is in its native element, free from the clogging weight of the material body. It depends upon the manner in which we have used our dense bodies in the daytime as to how long the desire body requires to perform the work of restoration of rhythm to the vital body and the dense body. If we have used our bodies strenuously during the previous day, inharmonies will, of course, be correspondingly prominent, and it will take the desire body most of the night to restore harmony and rhythm. Thus the man will be tied to his body day and night, but when he learns skill in action, controls his energy in the daytime, and ceases to waste his strength on unnecessary words and actions, when he commences to govern his temper and to stop inharmony due to incorrect observation, the desire body will not be occupied during the entire time of sleep in restoring the dense body. A part of the night may be used for work outside. If the sense centers of the desire body are sufficiently evolved, as they are with most of the intelligent class, the man may and does then slip the cable and soar into the desire world. He takes in the sights and scenes there, though he does not usually remember them until he has effected a cleavage between the higher and lower parts of the vital body, as previously explained. Thus we see the great importance of correct observation, of devotion to high ideals, of pure food, etc. All tend to harmonize the inner and outer vibrations. In proportion to our attainment in these directions, the time occupied in restoration is shortened, and we are left free to work in the desire world. The evening exercise. The evening exercise, retrospection, is of greater efficiency than any other method in advancing the aspirant upon the path of attainment. It has such a far-reaching effect that it enables one to learn now not only the lessons of this life, but lessons ordinarily reserved for future lives. After going to bed at night, the body is relaxed and the aspirant begins to review the scenes of the day in reverse order, starting with the events of the evening, then the occurrences of the afternoon, of the forenoon, and morning. He endeavors to picture to himself each scene as faithfully as possible, seeks to reproduce before his mind's eye all that took place in each pictured scene, with the object of judging his actions, of ascertaining if his words conveyed the meaning he intended or gave a false impression, or if he overstated or understated in relating experiences to others. He reviews his moral attitude in relation to each scene. At meals, did he eat to live, or did he live to eat, to please the palate? Let him judge himself and blame where blame is due, praise where merited. Probationers sometimes find it difficult to remain awake till the exercise has been performed. In such cases, it is permissible to sit up in bed till it is possible to follow the ordinary method. The value of retrospection is enormous, far-reaching beyond imagination. In the first place, we perform the work of restoration of harmony consciously and in a shorter time than the desire body can do during sleep, leaving a larger portion of the night available for outside work than otherwise possible. In the second place, one lives his purgatory and first heaven each night, and builds into the spirit as right feeling, the essence of the day's experience. Thus he escapes purgatory and first heaven each night, and builds into the spirit as right feeling in the essence of the day's experience. Thus he escapes purgatory after death, and also saves time spent in the first heaven. And last but not least, having extracted day by day the essence of experiences which make for soul growth, and having built them into the spirit, he is actually living in an attitude of mind and developing along lines that would ordinarily have been reserved for future lives. By the faithful performance of this exercise, we expunge day by day undesirable occurrences from our subconscious memory, so that our sins are blotted out, our auras commence to shine with spiritual gold extracted by retrospection from the experiences of each day, and thus we attract the attention of the teacher. "The pure shall see God," said Christ, and the teacher will quickly open our eyes when we are fit to enter into the hall of learning, the desire world, where we obtain our first experiences of conscious life without the dense body. The morning exercise. Concentration, the second exercise, is performed in the morning at the very earliest moment after the aspirant awakes. He must not arise to open blinds or perform any other unnecessary act. If the body is comfortable, he should at once relax and commence to concentrate. This is very important, as the spirit has just returned from the desire world at the moment of waking, and at that time the conscious touch with that world is more easily regained than at any other time of the day. If the body is uncomfortable, the aspirant may arise to relieve it ere he concentrates, but much of the efficacy of the concentration is lost by the delay. We remember from Lecture 4 that during sleep the currents of the desire body flow, and its vortices move and spin with enormous rapidity. But as soon as it enters the dense body, its currents and vortices are almost stopped by the dense matter, and the nerve currents of the vital body which carry messages to and from the brain. It is the object of this exercise to still the dense body to the same degree of inertia and insensibility as in sleep, although the spirit within is perfectly awake, alert, and conscious. Thus we make a condition where the sense centers of the desire body can begin to revolve while inside the dense body. Concentration is a word that puzzles many and carries meaning to but few, so we will endeavor to make its significance clear. The dictionary gives several definitions, all applicable to our idea. One is to draw to a center, another, from chemistry, to reproduce extreme purity and strength by removing valueless constituents. Applied to our problem, one of the above definitions tells us that if we draw our thoughts to a center, a point, we increase their strength on the principle that the power of the sun's rays is increased when focused to a point by means of a magnifying glass. By eliminating from our mind, for the time being, all other subjects, our whole thought power is available for use in attaining the object, or solving the problem on which we are concentrating. We may become so absorbed in our subject that if a cannon were fired above our heads, we would not hear it. People may become so lost in a book that they are oblivious to all else, and the aspirant to spiritual sight must acquire the faculty of becoming equally absorbed in the idea he is concentrating upon, so that he may shut out the world of sense from his consciousness and give his whole attention to the spiritual world. When he learns to do that, he will see the spiritual side of an object or idea illuminated by spiritual sight, and thus he will obtain a knowledge of the inner nature of things undreamt of by a worldly man. When he has reached that point of abstraction, the sense centers of the body commence to revolve slowly within the dense body, and will thus make a place for themselves. This in time will become more and more defined, and it will require less and less effort to set them going. The subject of concentration may be any high and lofty ideal, but should preferably be of such a nature that it takes the aspirant out of the ordinary things of sense, beyond time and space, and there is no better formula than the first 5 verses of St. John's Gospel. Taking them as subject, sentence by sentence, morning after morning, will in time give the aspirant a wonderful insight into the beginning of our universe and the method of creation, an insight far beyond any book learning. After a time, when the aspirant has learned to unwaveringly hold before him for about 5 minutes the idea upon which he is concentrating, he may try to suddenly drop the idea and leave a blank. Think of nothing else. Simply wait to see if anything enters the vacuum. In time, the sights and scenes of the desire world will fill the vacant space. After the aspirant has become used to that, he may demand this, that, or the other thing to come before him. It will come, and then he may investigate it. The main point, however, is that by following the above instructions, the aspirant is purifying himself. His aura commences to shine and will, without fail, draw the attention of a teacher, who will depute someone to give help when required for the next step in advancement. Even if months or years should go by and bring no visible result, rest assured that no effort has been in vain. The great teachers see and appreciate our efforts. They are just as anxious to have our assistance as we are to work. They may see reasons which make it inexpedient for us to take up work for humanity in this life or at this time. Sometime the hindering conditions will pass, and we shall be admitted to the light where we can see for ourselves. An ancient legend says that digging for treasure must be done in the stillness of night and in perfect silence. To speak one word until the treasure is safely excavated will inevitably cause it to disappear. That is a mystic parable which has reference to the search for spiritual illumination. If we gossip or recount to others the experiences of our concentration hour, we lose them. They cannot bear vocal transmission and will fade into nothingness until by meditation we have extracted them from a full knowledge of the underlying cosmic laws. Then the experience itself will not be recounted, for we shall see that it is but the husk which hid the kernel of worth. The law is of universal value, as it will be at once apparent, for it will explain facts in life, teach us how to take advantage of certain conditions, and to avoid others. The law may be freely stated at the discoverer's discretion for the benefit of humanity. The experience which revealed the law will then appear in its true light, as of only passing interest and unworthy of further notice. Therefore the aspirant should regard everything that happens during concentration as sacred, and should keep it strictly to himself. Finally, beware of regarding the exercises as a burdensome task. Estimate them at their true worth. They are our highest privileges. Only when thus regarded can we do them justice and reap full benefit from them. In the Rosicrucian movement, the elder brothers distinguish between three classes. First, students, those who are merely studying the philosophy. People of various denominations enter educational institutions such as Harvard or Yale and study mythology, psychology, and comparative religion there without prejudice to their religious affiliations. Students may enroll with us on the very same basis. Anyone is eligible who is not a hypnotist or professionally engaged as a medium, palmist, or astrologer. Second, probationers, who are students but who aspire to first-hand knowledge to fit themselves for service. To these, the General Secretary will furnish a pledge wherein the aspirant promises himself faithfully to perform the 2 exercises, to keep a daily record of his performance, and send that record monthly to headquarters. The term of probation is at least 5 years, and has for its purpose to test the earnestness and persistence of the aspirant, and to give him the opportunity to purify himself before taking up the more direct methods of training incident to discipleship. The report is also designed to be a help to the aspirant in the performance of the exercises. It is human nature to want to make as good a showing as possible, and the aspirant will thus try to do better, knowing that his work is being inspected. When a person has been a student of the Rosicrucian teachings for at least 2 years and has become so convinced of the verity thereof that he is prepared to sever his connection with all other occult or religious orders, the Christian churches and fraternal orders excepted, he may assume the obligation which admits him to the degree of probationer. We do not mean to insinuate by the foregoing that all other schools of occultism are of no account. Far from it. Many roads lead to Rome, but we shall attain with much less effort if we follow one of them than if we zigzag from path to path. Our time and energy are limited in the first place, and are still further curtailed by family and social duties not to be neglected for self-development. It is to husband the minimum of energy which we may legitimately expend upon ourselves, and to avoid waste of these scanty moments at our disposal, that resignation from all other orders is insisted upon by the leaders. The world is an aggregate of opportunities, but to take advantage of any of them, we must possess efficiency in a certain line of endeavor. Development of our spiritual powers will enable us to help or harm our weaker brothers. It is only justifiable when efficiency in service to humanity is the object. The Rosicrucian method of attainment differs from other systems in one especial particular. It aims, even at the start, to emancipate the pupil from dependence upon others, to make him self-reliant in the very highest degree, so that he may be able to stand alone under all circumstances and cope with all conditions. Only one who is thus strongly poised can help the weak. When a number of people meet in a class or circle for self-development along negative lines, results are usually achieved in a short time on the principle that it is easier to drift with the tide than to breast the current. The medium is not master of his actions, however, but a slave of a spirit control. Hence, such gatherings must be shunned by probationers. Even classes which meet in positive attitude of mind are not advised by the elder brothers, because the latent powers of all members are masked and visions of the inner worlds obtained by anyone there are partly due to the faculties of others. The heat of coal in the center of a fire is enhanced by that of surrounding coals, and the clairvoyant produced in a circle, be it ever so positive, is a hothouse plant, too dependent himself to be entrusted with the care of others. Therefore, each probationer in the Rosicrucian school performs his exercises in the seclusion and privacy of his room. Results may be obtained more slowly by this system, but when they appear, they will be manifest as powers cultivated by himself, usable independently of all others. Besides, the Rosicrucian methods build character at the same time that they develop spiritual faculties, and thus safeguard the pupil against yielding to temptation to prostitute divine powers for material gain. The foregoing does not include giving up the whole time of the candidate to spiritual endeavor. If no more time can be given, 5 minutes in the morning and 15 minutes at night will suffice. In fact, to give up any time to development of spiritual faculties, which should be used in legitimate material endeavor, would be decidedly wrong. We must do our full duty in the material world before we may serve in the spiritual realms. Whoever is faithless to his earthly duty cannot be expected to be faithful in spiritual work. When 60 consecutive reports have been sent in, the candidate may apply for individual instruction, which will be given if possible. Third, disciples, who have completed the term of probation and been accepted by the elder brothers, are given individual instruction. Tuition is free. During the past few years, since we first began to disseminate the Rosicrucian teachings, they have spread over the whole civilized world. They are studied with avidity from the Cape of Good Hope to the Arctic Circle and beyond. They have found response in the hearts of all classes of people. They are known in the snow-clad huts of Alaska and in government houses where a tropical wind unfurls the British lion. In the capitals of Turkish autocracy and American democracy alike, our adherents may be found, all in lively correspondence and close touch with our movement and working for promulgation of the deeper truths concerning life and being, which are helping them.